Welcome to the GASFLUX Company. We're glad that you've selected our unique GASFLUX process for use in your brazing operation, and we look forward to serving your brazing needs for years to come. The purpose of this video is to illustrate the proper setup and operation of the Model 69D, Model S, and Model L GasFluxers, as well as to provide important information on maintenance and safety. After thoroughly reading the instruction manual that comes with your GasFluxer and viewing this video carefully, you will find that GasFluxers can be integrated easily into your existing brazing operation. Setup and operation should be safe, smooth, and trouble-free. Please remember, however, that liquid GasFlux is flammable and should always be used in a safe, well-ventilated area and under the proper conditions. GASFLUX is a registered trade name for a liquid flux for brazing and is manufactured by the GASFLUX Company for exclusive use in a GasFluxer. Please pay close attention to the precautions presented throughout this training program. Remember, too, that your brazing operation must comply with the following national standards. Standard Z49.1, Safety in Welding and Cutting, published by the American Welding Society and the American National Standards Institute. AWS and ANSI Standard Z87.1, Occupational and Educational Eye and Face Protection, and the Occupational Safety and Health Association Standard 29 CFR 1910 Subpart Q, Welding, Cutting, and Brazing. At the GASFLUX Company, we care about your safety. Please make sure that you and those around you know and follow all industry-accepted safety procedures. Your GasFluxer comes complete with all the components required for setup and operation. Also included are an instruction manual and warranty information. Please read all information carefully before setting up your unit. The Material Safety Data Sheet provides important information about the hazards of using chemicals in the workplace. If you did not receive an MSDS for liquid GasFlux or require additional copies, please contact your local GasFlux distributor or simply call the GasFlux Company to obtain a copy. As you unpack the Model 69D GasFluxer from the carton, you will find the following items: the GasFluxer body, a reserve tank to hold liquid GasFlux, a hose, and a non-return check valve. The Model S and Model L GasFluxers come with a 5-gallon reserve tank. The Model S has inlet and outlet fittings that are compatible with 1-inch piping. The inlet and outlet fittings on the Model L GasFluxer are compatible with 3/4-inch piping. Make sure that all parts are included, that all valves turn freely, and that nothing has been damaged during shipment. Find a location where the GasFluxer will be at least 5 feet in any horizontal direction from any open flame. Then bolt the body of the GasFluxer to a solid work surface, such as a table or shelf. To connect the GasFluxer to your own brazing equipment, remove the fuel gas hose from your existing regulator. Attach one end of the hose supplied with the GasFluxer to the outlet of the regulator. Attach the other end to the inlet cock of the GasFluxer. Tighten the connections with a wrench. Next, install the non-return check valve to the outlet cock of the GasFluxer. This check valve is a safety device designed to help prevent the reverse flow of gases. Install the check valve at the outlet of the Model S and Model L GasFluxers. After installing the non-return check valve, attach the end of the fuel gas hose to the check valve, making sure to tighten the connection with a wrench. After making these connections, you are now ready to fill the reserve tank with liquid GasFlux. As a precaution, remember that liquid GasFlux is flammable and should never be exposed to open air within 35 feet of an open flame. To fill the reserve tank, place it onto a solid and stable work surface with the adapter pointing up. Using a pipe and wrench, remove the filler cap. Insert a funnel into the filler neck of the tank and open the ball valve for proper venting of the tank. As you pour GasFlux into the reserve tank, use the farm pour method. Turn the can sideways so that the spout is oriented upwards. Then pour slowly. As you fill the reserve tank, leave enough space at the top of the tank for expansion due to vapor pressure. Room is provided in the reserve tank for 1 gallon of liquid gas flux and a small pocket of air. Never overfill the tank. After filling, close the ball valve. Put the filler cap back onto the nipple and tighten it with a wrench. Also, replace the cap on the container from which you have poured. If properly sealed and stored in its original container, liquid gas flux will keep indefinitely. As you prepare to fill the gas fluxer, double check all connections of the fuel and oxygen lines between the tanks, the gas fluxer, and the torch. To place the reserve tank onto the body of the gas fluxer, lift the arms of the camlock coupler. This will allow the adapter of the reserve tank and the coupler of the gas fluxer to butt together flat and become properly seated. When the reserve tank is fully set and in position, move the camlock arms so that they are flush with the sides of the female coupler. Lift up slightly on the reserve tank to ensure that the reserve tank and gas fluxer are properly connected. The camlock arms are designed to lock into position only when the reserve tank and the gas fluxer are properly seated. The oxygen and fuel gas lines should be turned off while transferring liquid flux from the reserve tank to the gas fluxer. Make sure that both the inlet and the outlet valves on the Model 69D gas fluxer are closed. On the Model S, turn the inlet and outlet valves clockwise to close. On the Model L, close the inlet and outlet ball valves. After completing this step, open the ball valve on the gas fluxer. Then open the ball valve on the reserve tank. The liquid flux will then transfer from the reserve tank into the gas fluxer. When the level of liquid gas flux reaches the half-full point in the sight glass body, turn off the ball valve on the reserve tank. Wait a moment to allow any liquid gas flux left in the column between the two units to drain down. Follow the same procedure for the Model S gas fluxer. On the Model L, monitor the level of liquid gas flux in the column of the sight glass. Then close the ball valve on the top of the gas fluxer. There should always be a visible airspace in the sight glass. If the sight glass is completely full of liquid, the gas fluxer has been overfilled and should not be used until this error has been corrected. Remember that under no circumstances should the gas fluxer be filled from any container other than the reserve tank. When properly installed and connected, the gas fluxer and reserve tank create a closed system, which is the only safe method of filling the gas fluxer. Before you begin operating the gas fluxer or any other brazing apparatus, make sure that you are wearing the proper protective equipment. In accordance with the standards of the American Welding Society and the American National Standards Institute, the GASFLUX Company recommends Shade 5 lenses for brazing with the GASFLUX process. A flame-proof bib and gloves are also recommended. Adequate ventilation is necessary in accordance with the American Welding Society standards, and use of respiratory protection may be required if inadequate ventilation is a factor in the brazing area. Make sure that all connections are tight and that all valves on the torch and the gas fluxer are closed. Turn the bypass valve in a clockwise direction until it stops, which may require more than one revolution of the valve. The bypass valve on the Model S and Model L gas fluxers is located on the front center portion of the unit. Set the fuel gas and oxygen pressure to the desired amounts recommended by the torch and tip manufacturer. When using the Model 69D gas fluxer, the fuel gas must never exceed 15 pounds per square inch gauge, or 103.5 kPa, and the oxygen pressure must never exceed 20 pounds per square inch gauge, or 138 kPa. Follow the same pressure requirements for the Model S gas fluxer. When using the Model L gas fluxer, never exceed 5 psig or 34.5 kPa for fuel gas and 20 psig or 138 kPa for oxygen pressure. Purge each line individually, beginning with the fuel gas line. Open the outlet valve on the gas fluxer, followed by the fuel gas valve on the torch, and finally the inlet valve on the gas fluxer. Purge the fuel gas line for at least 5 seconds. Close the torch valve. Next, open the torch's oxygen valve and purge the oxygen line for 5 seconds. Then close the torch valve. Open the fuel gas valve on the torch and use a spark lighter to ignite the fuel gas. Don't be surprised by the pale green color of the flame, which is normal for brazing with the gas flux process. Open the oxygen line to allow oxygen to enter the system. Adjust to a neutral flame. The bypass valve on the top of the gas fluxer is used to regulate the amount of flux being passed from the gas fluxer to the flame. Turning the bypass valve clockwise will introduce more flux into the flame. Turning the valve counterclockwise will introduce less. It is important to note that the bypass valve allows for several complete revolutions between its fully open and fully closed positions. Once the gas fluxer has been set for your fluxing requirements, you should have no further need to adjust the unit. When you are ready to shut down the unit, extinguish the flame by first closing the oxygen valve on the torch and then turning off the fuel gas valve. Next, close off the cylinder valves on the oxygen and fuel gas supply lines. Drain the pressure from the system in accordance with the instructions of the gas apparatus manufacturer. Close the inlet and outlet valves on the gas fluxer to prevent the liquid gas flux from evaporating through the lines. Properly closing off the valves will also help to keep moisture out of the system. When it becomes necessary to refill the reserve tank, employ the following procedures. First, close all valves and extinguish all flames in the area. Move the camlock arms to an upward position in order to fully release the reserve tank from the lower unit of the gas fluxer. Remove the reserve tank to an area that is at least 35 feet from an open flame. As a safety precaution, always carry the reserve tank with the adapter pointing away from you. Never carry the tank by the ball valve. Doing so could cause it to open and release the liquid flux in the reserve tank. Place the tank onto a table with the adapter pointing upward. Slowly open the reserve tank's ball valve to relieve any internal pressure, making sure that the valve is pointing away from you. If others are present, make sure that the valve points away from them as well. At this point, refill the reserve tank by following the same procedures required for initial filling. In order to keep your gas fluxer in top operating condition, proper maintenance is required. The gas fluxer unit, along with all the connections leading to and from it, should be inspected daily for leaks. If leaks are present, they will appear in the form of white deposits. Any sign of leakage must be taken care of before further operation. Leaks in any part of the system can be avoided or corrected by the following procedures. At the bypass valve, tighten the packing nuts and all threaded connections. At the check valve, tighten the valve and hose connections. Tighten the sight glass with a spanner wrench. In addition, both the inner and outer gaskets may require replacement. At the head gasket, tighten all bolts or replace the gasket itself. Welding hoses should be replaced with grade T hoses. Make sure the quick disconnect coupling is properly seated. If necessary, replace the gasket inside the coupling. For information on parts lists and rebuilding programs, contact your local distributor or the GASFLUX Company. We trust that this presentation has given you the information you need to set up and safely operate your gas fluxer. And we know that you'll be pleased at the superior brazing that is achievable with the GASFLUX process. If you have any questions or need additional information, call your distributor or the GASFLUX Company. We're here to help.